And welcome back, fourth and long fans. It's your footy correspondent, Coach Donnie Hess here, back with another AFLW round review. And unfortunately, ladies and gentlemen, as you can see on this video, I do not have a co-host this week. Unfortunately, some scheduling difficulties and a crazy time of the year in the AFLW has made finding a co-host a little bit difficult. So we're going to ride solo on this one. So please bear with me as I try to do this as quickly as possible and still give you the AFLW coverage that you deserve. So really quickly, jumping into round four, as all of us noticed that watched this was a wet, this was a wild, and this was a crazy round. So let's dive right into the results. We start off Friday night down in Tassie as the North Melbourne Roos knock off the Geelong Cats 28-16, a 12-point win in a wet and wild game. Both teams fighting it out, a wet footy, both teams playing really, really well. But Georgie Pasparkas with a marvelous game, even in a loss. Vicky Wall kicking 2 goals for the North Melbourne Roos to help the Roos get a big win to continue to play good footy. Also on Friday night, we saw the West Coast Eagles come over to Sydney and get a big win over the GWS Giants by 7 in another nail-biting game, 16-9. Again, cracking game. Again, the wet weather seemed to be one of the talking points of most of this round for most of these games. You can definitely tell it has turned into winter footy, which is fantastic to see how these ladies respond to that. We jump to one of the few games that was not in the rain up in Queensland as the Gold Coast knock off the Saints 42-28 as the Saints continue to slide a little bit after their first couple of wins to start the season. The Suns continue their win loss bouncing back record as we've started this season, only 4 rounds in, but again, 2-2. We'll have to see how that goes. The next game, unfortunately, I will pull the band-aid off for this hard game that it was for the Swans as they are defeated by the Port Adelaide Power 68-2. The Power just looked too good, too strong, just way hard, difficult matchup for the Swans here. Hopefully, they can regroup and come back fighting in this next round. As again, the Port Adelaide Powers youth in the midfield absolutely had its way in this game. We jump to the second draw of the season, as again, Carlton is involved, as Carlton and Fremantle have a 32-32 draw out in the West, as again, Carlton now has 4 points in 2 consecutive draws, so it's a way to get points, but a little bit of an interesting one is I think Fremantle is starting to kind of find their way after some early season struggles. And then 4 games that were absolutely fantastic. Some really good matchups here as we see the Western Bulldogs knock off the Hawks 37-7, a 30-point win, and the Doggies remain undefeated and continue their great form right now in the footy. So it's going to be fascinating to watch this young Doggies team and how long can they stay with a positive no losses on their ledger. One of the two cracking matchups between some top level teams as Collingwood take on the Adelaide Crows, and the Crows find a way to get a big win on the road by 5, 21-16, as the Crows have kind of started to find their form again. Playing a close game, but this is a good Pies team, so a close game in this one is not surprising. But the Crows get the big win. They're in an absolutely waterlogged, absolutely insane game. The Richmond Tigers knock off the Essendon Bombers 26-24. Mon Conti again continuing to show her absolute elite skill in this game, even in the wet, with a absolute fantastic goal to help the Tigers get a big win. And Elise Sharon in the back continuing to be a disposal machine with 20 disposals in the game. And last but not least, the one matchup, 1 versus 2, the top 2 teams, as the Lions go to Casey Fields and they get past their hoodoo, getting a 42-27 win over the Melbourne Demons by 15. Fantastic. And the Lions and the Doggies now end round 4 as the only 2 undefeated teams left. So we jump from there to, as per usual, I do my team of the round. I don't have the burning questions because I don't have my co-host. and I'm not going to ask myself my own questions. So we jump to the team of the week, some of the performers who I really, really enjoyed watching this week. So round four again, as always, we start on the defensive end. Mac McDonald for the Geelong Cats again, another great game, playing really, really good footy for that Cats team that I think has got a real good shot of making the finals this year. GWS's Jody Hicks with another great game. Bianca Jacobson from the St Kilda Saints, Hawthorn's Eileen Gilroy, and as I stated in the review, Richmond's Elise Sheeran, again, 20 disposals, absolutely everywhere. She has been a marvel for that Richmond backline, and another great performance there. We jump to the ruck where Carlton's Bree Moody takes the starting spot for the ruck position there, kicking a goal in her game in that draw with Fremantle. The mids again, it's so difficult. So many great performances. But I have the West Coast, Emma Swanson, Port Adelaide's Abby Dorick, Port Adelaide's Hannah Ewings, Western Bulldogs Christy Lamb, and the Western Bulldogs Ellie Blackburn. Such great performances by all of those lovely young ladies there. And we jump to the forward line. North's Vicky Wall, Gold Coast Kalinda Howarth, Richmond's Courtney Wakefield, Melbourne's Kate Hoare, and Brisbane's Jess Wardlaw will round out my starters. We jump to the bench where I have my defenders, Gold Coast Serene Watson, another incredible game by that young lady. Frio's Mem Strom, another great game by her. Georgie Prasparkas is my midfielder. My forward is Britt Perry from the Carlton Blues. And my utility, when you get 30 disposals, it's hard not to put you in, and that is the Gold Coast Charlie Rowbottom. And we go from my team of the week to the power rankings, and we had some shakeups this week with a few losses. So staying in the number one spot is the Brisbane Lions. Number two is the Western Bulldogs. Number three is the Adelaide Crows. Number four, the Richmond Tigers. And number five, the Melbourne Demons. So a little bit of change there. Melbourne drops a little bit with the win, and the Doggies and the Brisbane Lions take the top two spots now, being the only two undefeated teams left in the competition. So we jump to it. We'll jump to our tips. I know this is going to be a very quick review, unfortunately, with no co-host. So we'll jump right into it. Round five, going to be some interesting games, especially very soon from when I am recording this. We jump out Optus Stadium, first game of the round, the Western Derby, West Coast Eagles, Fremantle Dockers on the docket here, and we jump into it. And I'm going to go with the Dockers. I'm going to tip the Dockers in this one because I think they're starting to find their way. Again, West Coast form has still been a little bit suspect at times, so we'll kind of keep an eye on that. Another one also at GMHBA as the Geelong Cats host the St Kilda Saints. I know Geelong doesn't score a lot, but they play really good defense. That midfield is dangerous. So I'm going to tip Geelong in this one. Geelong over the St Kilda Saints. Up to the Swinburne Center as the Western Bulldogs host the North Melbourne Roos. I think the Doggies keep it going. I know North is a very difficult opponent. I know this could be one of those kind of trap games for the Western Bulldogs because it's a very talented, very experienced North Melbourne team, but I like the way the Doggies are playing right now. The next game, Collingwood versus Essendon. Again, this is where we test the mettle of the Essendon Bombers. Are they for real? They kind of played a really good game. They played a really good game against the Richmond Tigers, just falling a tiny bit short. This is even a step up for the Richmond Tigers. I think Collingwood gets this one in a big win for the Pies to kind of keep them going. And it'll be interesting to see how Essendon bounces back after that loss to the Richmond Tigers. Also to the Swinburne Center, coming up not too far before the men's grand final is the Sydney Swans versus the Hawthorn Hawks. Two teams both looking for their first win. And because of the injuries at Hawthorn, I'm going to tip Sydney. This is not a homer tip. I just think Sydney is a little more structured. I think they're just a little bit more of a complete team, with Mon Ham being back this last week, and then Cynthia Hamilton and potentially Maddie Collier both potentially back for this game against Hawthorn. I think Sydney's got a very good shot of getting its first ever AFLW win. Over to Icon Park, where Carlton will take on Melbourne. I think Melbourne bounces back, getting Taylor Harris and Jordan Ivey back. I think this is Carlton better watch out. This is going to be a very angry Melbourne Demons team coming into Icon Park. So I think the D's win this, and they win this one big. Also at the Swinburne Center, it sees Richmond host the Brisbane Lions. As much as I love the Tigers, I think they're a fascinating team to watch. I just think Brisbane's just a little bit too strong. Brisbane will get the win there. We jump up to Subaru Oval as Gold Coast hosts Port Adelaide. Gold Coast win there makes me a little bit more confident. I think Port kind of capitalized a little bit on a Sydney team that just did not play well in that one. So I'm going to tip Gold Coast in this one. And the last one at Wigan Oval as the Adelaide Crows take on GWS. Adelaide, too strong, too good. GWS still kind of a little too inconsistent for me there. And as you can see, it is a bite size, it is quick, it is fast, and that will do it for my AFLW review. Thankfully, next week I will have a co-host. We will have a little bit more to talk about next time. It won't just be me here flapping my jaws. So that will do it for my AFLW round 4 review. Come back next week. I will have a co-host. I think it'll be a fantastic episode. Have a wonderful evening, and we will see you again very soon.